Media Network proudly presents a weekly exploration of various spiritual practices with renowned spiritual authors, coaches, teachers, and Dr. Tracy Brown, RScP.
And now, here's Tracy.
Hey everybody, it is 12 noon Mountain Time, and whatever time it is wherever you are, here we are, and it is time for poetry, prayer, and practice with me, Tracy Brown. I'm so happy to be here, so happy to be here, and I am really looking forward to going into this question. Do you want to be healed? Do you want to be healed physically, mentally, emotionally? Do you really want to be healed? And on the one hand, the automatic answer to that is yes, of course. Or for some of you, the automatic answer is there's nothing to heal, only truth to reveal. If you have studied Science of Mind or Ernest Holmes for any length of time. But beyond that, right, from the human perspective, from the thinking about what is it that I might need to be healed from, or what is the truth I want to reveal, where is the truth not expressing itself right now in my life, do I want to change that? Because in a metaphysical perspective, what we know is that we are able to change conditions through using the power of our thought and our intention. And we have responsibility for doing that. So that's where we're going today. This question of, do you want to be healed? And I just invite you to think about what might you benefit from healing or revealing the truth about in your life. Where are you caught up in old stories or false beliefs? Or where are you caught up in what's actually going on? Like, I have a splint on my hand. I had surgery on my ring finger a few weeks ago and 3 weeks ago. And there are days when I am absolutely clear that the surgery worked and my finger and the tendons and the nerves and everything in my finger are healing exactly the way they need to, so that my finger will be straight and flexible and strong, restored to equal or better than the function it had before the injury. And then there are other days when I catch myself thinking, well, I hope this works. Or I wonder if I'll need to have surgery again in a year or in 2 years. Like, did it really take? Or, wow, it just feels kind of funny. I wonder if that means I should go get an x-ray. Maybe it's not healing right. Like, what? Like, what is it in my brain that makes that happen, that has those subconscious thoughts going on, when I know that in those moments where I am consciously focusing my energy, I am very clear the surgery worked just fine. I was so happy to be referred to a brilliant surgeon, and the team, and my experience on surgery day was perfect. It was fabulous. And that's an indication that everything is going exactly as it should, so that my finger heals perfectly, that I have flexibility and strength and a straight finger, right? If I'm conscious, then there is no doubt in my mind. And I say this to myself with the same energy I am saying it to you right now. Every time I think about it, or every day in those moments when I am consciously doing spiritual practice, supporting my intention for the perfect healing of my finger. So I get surprised when I catch the subconscious thoughts coming forward. And I I know for me, and maybe this is true for you as well, that this happens probably because you, me, all or most of us are a little addicted to disappointment, to discord, to the idea that disaster might come. Like things could be going great, but we've been socialized to stop and think, or to expect, and then to accept disappointment, discord, or disaster. Do you ever find yourself stopping and catching yourself thinking, oh, everything's going too well, what's about to happen? Or um, hearing yourself in your self-talk say, oh, well, this can't last. Or even in preparing, maybe you're going to a new place or meeting some new people, and in your mind you're imagining people arguing or fighting or being suspicious or jealous, or right, there's got to be some discord that is about to happen. And when disaster hits, not necessarily, I'm not thinking, like major natural disasters like earthquake, hurricane, right? I'm not thinking about weather disasters, but in our lives, those things that feel like disasters, divorce, disease, um, I'm smiling because the picture that just went through my mind was really, this happened 2 or 3 years ago. I had propped a big, like 6 foot piece of framed art. I had propped it on against my front door because I was moving it. I was going to move it to a different location in my house. And I just kind of propped it there, but I forgot that it was there. And I went to the store to run in. I went to run some errands, and I realized I had left my wallet at home. So I came back home, but instead of coming through the garage, I came through the front door with my key. And as I pushed the front door open, that beautiful framed piece of art went crashing to the floor. Because of course that's not where it usually is, and I wasn't thinking about that. The fact that the day before I had propped that piece of art, so I had glass everywhere, and it was a disaster. Luckily, I'm surprised that example came to mind, because actually the moment it happened, beside a big gasp as I pushed the door and remembered, and then heard it crash, all I could do was laugh, and of course be very careful because the glass was everywhere. Um, and but I was like, oh, of course, that's so hilarious. How'd you forget? Blah blah blah. I didn't go into drama around it, but I could have, right? I could imagine that at a different point in my life, I might have been doing self talk like, oh, Tracy, you're so stupid. Oh, how could you have forgotten that? Um, oh my gosh, this cost several $100s to frame, and that was 20 years ago. It's going to cost you $1,000 to frame it now. And, I could have gone into worry and fear and shame and blame, because that's what we often do when there's what we have decided to look at as a disaster. So we are often addicted to disappointment. We're addicted to discord. We're addicted to disaster. We expect that. If things are going bad, we expect more of that. If things are going great, we expect it to change to disappointment, disaster, discord. And we live in a society where there is so much polarity, and there is so much pain, and there is so much suspicion, and there is so much hatred, and there is so much violence. It is easy to understand why our brains are to a certain degree programmed to go looking for discord, expecting disappointment, anticipating disaster. But my question for us today is, do you want to heal, right? My question is, do you want to be healed? Do you want to heal? Do you want to be healed? Do you want to heal? Do you want to be healed? Are you ready for that? Because really, you have the power. I could stop right there. You have the power. So when I think about, do I want to be healed? I think about, how do I shift from disappointment, discord, and disaster? How do I shift to clarity? How do I shift to choice? How do I shift to curiosity? How do I shift to clarity that there's only one source of life, and that source of life is the source that created me? I am a part of that. There is no separation, and everything is happening for me, not to me, not against me, and I can use it for good. I shift to clarity that everything is good or leading to good. I shift to choice, that it is up to me to decide how I respond to whatever is going on. I may not get to choose everything that happens in my life or in my environment. In fact, I absolutely don't get to choose everything in my environment and what everyone else does and how things play out, but I always get to choose how I will respond to it. I get to choose. It is my choice what my intentions are and how I set them and how I rearrange my thinking and my life to be in alignment with the intention. I have choice and curiosity. When I shift to curiosity, like, oh, well, where could this lead? Or, oh, what else is true? When my brain is telling me this is a disaster, I just ask myself, what else could be true? That could be true, but what else could be true? Right? Curiosity about, I wonder how I can see the good here. I wonder how I can make this good. Or I wonder how, if I stop resisting this, I might find some benefit from it. So when I think about that question, do I want to be healed? And again, going back to the Ernest Holmes quote, there's nothing to heal, only truth to reveal. If I'm thinking, oh, this hurts, or oh, this doesn't feel good, or oh, this is so messy, but what is the truth that needs to be revealed for this difficult challenge to resolve itself or to benefit me in some way? What is the truth that is seeking to be revealed here? That's the antidote to, or the solution to this problem or challenge. And I can only reveal that truth. I can only recognize that truth. I can only imagine that truth if I shift to clarity about the spiritual truth, the absolute truth that is happening right now and always happening in my life. I can only do it if I shift to choice. I'm not a victim here. There are no villains, and I don't need a hero. I simply choose. And three, curiosity. Instead of accepting or affirming that this is such a terrible, horrible thing, I get curious. Get curious about what I could do from here going forward. I get curious about what the possibilities are. And this is all that we are doing with our spiritual practices anyway. Our spiritual practices are designed to give us the inner and outer tools, but especially the inner tools that are required for us to navigate all of the human experiences that we get to attend to or be affected by, sorry, not affected, all the conditions, all the circumstances, all of the environmental situations. That's what our spiritual practice is all about, helping us navigate the human experience, not escape it. I say that so much, I'm beginning to think maybe that's the next book, because things come up so much about people misunderstanding and thinking that if they do enough spiritual practice, they will escape anything that they have labeled as bad or hard or difficult or unfair or. But our spiritual practices are not to escape the human experience. They are designed to help us navigate the human experience. So, yeah. So, do you want to be healed? Are you ready to be healed? Are you willing to be healed? Because that's the other thing. I should I admit that I actually find it quite humorous many times, not all the time, but much of the time when someone comes to me for coaching or someone comes to me for prayer and they are arguing for their limitations, right? That, like, no matter what I say or suggest or ask, their response is really trying to convince me that they have a right to be upset, or they want me to affirm that this hard thing that happened to them 4 years ago is reason for them to behave or feel the way they are behaving or feeling right now, and that they're going to feel that way for the rest of their life. Anger, disappointment, anger, especially disappointment, resentment, fear. And sometimes it just strikes me as so funny that they have subconsciously, or actually now consciously, convinced themselves that this is the reason they are the way they are, and this is the way they are and always will be. But in reality, most of the time, most of us have convinced ourselves of some things that aren't really the absolute truth, but they're in our subconscious. And we're not consciously arguing for those things, but it is so deeply embedded in our subconscious that our subconscious claims it and lives, and we end up living our life with that, what sometimes we'll refer to as a hidden belief. It's really not hidden, I don't think, because it shows up in the what we say and what we do, but it's hidden in that it's not our conscious. If we think about it, or if we say what we want, we would say something very different. And there was a Raymond Charles Barker quote that reminds me of this all the time. When the subconscious mind accepts an idea, the inner creative power works to bring that idea to completion, whether you are consciously thinking about it or not. Repeating. When the subconscious mind accepts an idea, the inner creative power works to bring it to completion, whether you are consciously thinking about it or not. So, do you want to be healed? Yes. Then you have to pay attention to what is in your subconscious, what you are subconsciously thinking about, or what your subconscious is believing, and therefore creating situations that will, or conditions that will have that show up, that will bring that belief into completion. It's like, oh, this is why we really do pay attention to our thoughts. This is also why we use affirmations, so that the affirmations are our conscious thought. And if there is something in our subconscious that is different from that, that we can use the affirmations to replace what is in our subconscious as a default, or what has been in our subconscious for the past 3 decades, right? And be able to replace that old thought or that false belief with a new belief that then the universe again must actually deliver. Because if I've used that affirmation enough over and over and over and over and over and over again, what I'm doing is I am reprogramming my subconscious. And once my subconscious gets a hold of that and accepts it as, oh, this is what Tracy is talking about. Oh, this is what Tracy wants. Oh, this is what Tracy believes now. Then the universe must respond to that and create in accordance with that. So it's pretty basic metaphysics, right? But that is a great reminder, especially because, again, we live in a society where polarity and challenge and the addiction to discord, disaster, right? All of that is happening if we are not consciously monitoring and managing what we want and how we want our lives to play out. This is a quote from Florence Scovel-Shinn to really think about. Are we acting from motives of fear, or are we acting from motives of faith? Watch your motives with all diligence, for out of these motives are the issues of life. Repeating, are we acting from motives of fear or faith? Watch your motives with all diligence, for out of these motives are the issues or the experience of life. I love this quote because, again, if the question is, do you want to be healed? Then I've got to think about, ooh, what am I afraid of? What's in there? It's the example I was giving with my finger a few minutes ago. Like, I think I'm acting from motives of faith in good outcome, faith that my finger is perfectly healing, that my finger is already healed, and the tendons and the nerves and the bone and the angle, everything is just getting in alignment with that picture of perfect healing, straight finger, flexible and strong, until I catch that thought that's a little afraid that maybe it's not going to work, or a little afraid that it won't work it won't work as well as I envision, and I'll have to do the surgery again. And it's like, what? Like, what? Where did that come from? I'm not thinking any of that when I'm conscious. So, but I notice it. I don't just say cancel, cancel, delete, delete. I then replace or feed my subconscious what I do consciously believe. No, I'm not afraid of it not healing. I have faith that it is healing, that the blueprint for perfection is unfolding right here and right now in my, from the tip of my finger all the way through my wrist and my arm. And literally, I will do visioning that takes that perfection then through my entire body and come back and end at that finger. That finger is a part of the perfection and the wholeness that is in every part, every inch of my body. But I consciously have to choose to do that every time I notice that the human fear or doubt has crept in. At least that's how I think about it. I think about, oh, the doubt has crept in. When in reality, the doubt hasn't crept in. The doubt is in the subconscious, like running full blast. I just haven't done enough on the conscious level to move it out of the way and give my subconscious a new diet. It's like put your subconscious on an intentional food plan. A food plan of belief, a food plan of absolute truth, a food plan of the qualities of God expressing in you, a food plan like feeding it. And it may, in fact, it probably needs more than 3 meals a day. It probably needs meals every hour on the waking hour, depending on how big the challenge or problem is. And some of you have heard me tell the story about during the first month or two of the pandemic and being in a panic about income and work and responsibilities and all of that, and how there were days in that first month especially where I was doing spiritual practice a lot. I mean, I might meditate for 15 minutes and feel great, And then an hour later, I would be having fear thoughts again. So I would do a spiritual mind treatment, and I might be okay for 30 minutes or 3 hours. But invariably, I would find myself in doubt or having some anxiety, and I'd be back in spiritual practice. And, and I would call someone else to pray for me or with me, or I would pull a book off the shelf and read for 30 minutes, and I would be fine. But I had to keep making the choice. I had to keep going back to the clarity of what I know is a spiritual truth. And I had to keep getting curious about how is this going to work out? I know it's going to work out for my good, right? I know this. Do I really believe it? There were days in the early part where I had to say, do you really believe these things that you've been teaching for the last couple of decades? And when the answer was, well, yeah, I really do believe it, then I could start saying to myself, you believe this, right? So apply it, use it. And so that's what I think, this quote is such a great reminder of, that we have to catch when our motives, or when we're being driven, or when we're reacting to fear, or when we're responding based on faith. Because if we are working from that place of faith, then the fear is really the same thing, right? Fear is faith in something going badly. And the way we often use faith, it's faith in things always working out, or things being used for good. But there's a whole nother, right? There's a whole nother conversation we can have about really fear and faith are the same thing. That fear is just faith in the bad, faith in it not working, faith in it being broken, faith in what we don't want. So I'm going to share with you a couple more quotes that I keep in mind when I think about this. Do I really want to be healed? And what do I need to do in order to support that healing, that revelation of truth in my life, as my life, or through my life? So another Florence Scovel Shinn quote, the, the law of preparation works both ways. If you prepare for what you fear or don't want, you begin to attract it. I know, I'm just being quiet and letting you take that in. The law of preparation works both ways. If you prepare for what you fear, if you prepare for what you don't want, that's what you will attract. The law of attraction, the law of preparation, right? I'm preparing for this not to work. I wore a splint for 8 weeks and my finger didn't heal by itself. So I don't know why this surgery is going to work. I'm really afraid it might not work. Oh my goodness, I'm afraid that it might work to a certain degree, but my finger will still be bent. Or, right, I could be constantly thinking about those things and preparing for what I will do when it doesn't work, when my finger does not heal. Or I can prepare for what I want, what I know is possible, and what I am every day doing things to support. So when I change the bandage, I could be doing mentally, I could be thinking about a whole lot of other things, but I consciously choose to bless the bandages as I'm washing the hand and checking the incision. I'm so grateful the incision is not infected. It is healthy. Look how great my finger is healing. I look at my finger, and when I put the splint back on it, I'm like, this splint is the perfect support for my finger. It is healing at the perfect angle. And the whole 10 minutes or so that it takes me to clean my hand and change the bandage, the entire 10 minutes, I am completely focused on how much I love, how excited I am that my finger is healing perfectly, and that, it has everything it needs, that every cell in my finger knows how to work with every other cell to return to the blueprint of perfection, and how grateful I am that this is happening literally for 10 minutes out loud. I am doing and saying these kinds of things while I am physically cleaning and then rewrapping the bandage, because I want to use the law of preparation to attract what I want. I want to use the law of attraction to attract a perfect outcome. And that's what it means we um, when we basically say that we are going to choose, we are going to shift to clarity, we are going to shift to choice, and we are going to shift to curiosity. Curiosity, not about why something happened the way it did, but curiosity about the infinite potentiality that exists for good to express itself in my life, as my life, and through my life. But what we know is that this stuff only works if you work it. Now, many people say that, but the person who is most referred to, who used that saying so much and even wrote a book entitled It Works If You Work It, is Dr. Johnny Coleman. Because Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman knew and taught and modeled and equipped people to work these spiritual principles so that they didn't get stuck in disaster, or the belief in discord did not become stronger than the belief in peace or clarity. So we know this. And another Johnny Coleman quote that really applies to what we're talking about today is this one. You and God are always a majority. So if your human brain starts trying to convince you that, well, maybe you're the only one who thinks this, or, who are you to believe that this mental, physical, or emotional challenge can actually be resolved? You and God are always a majority. You and spirit co-creating together. You are not limited to what may have happened in the past. You and God together are not limited by the statistics that your doctor may tell you about the prognosis, or the 15% of people heal and 85% don't. Well, you and God are always a majority. So what do you believe? Do you believe that you're part of the 85%? Or do you believe you're part of the 15%? Or do you believe that, forget the 15%, you're a part of the 1% that not only heals, but you're better than you were before, and you heal in, 90% faster than anyone else who's ever healed, right? You and God are always a majority. the curiosity that I mentioned, right? Clarity, choice, and curiosity. The curiosity, um, my dad had 3 amputations, and I think the first amputation he might have been a little down, a little depressed, a lot scared um, about what it would mean for his life and what he would be able to do and not do. At the same time, even though I don't know because I never actually had this conversation with him, but at the same time, if he felt that way at first, it was not evident. But I do, he was subdued for a while and he had to learn a lot. But the first amputation was just several toes. And so it was more finding his balance and doing the things that he always had to do. So I think it wasn't as obvious as it might have been. His second amputation was then at the knee, and that was major, right? And he had to deal with prosthetics, and he had a lot of changes about getting around and driving and, all kinds of things. But I can say that once he got through the first phase of grief and fear and anger and maybe shame and blame and all the human things that would come up for you or me or anyone else, he had to have gone to curiosity. He went to clarity quickly, even in some of those early stages, because he was very religious, a deeply religious man, and his faith was deep and strong. But I think it was when he got to curiosity, like curiosity of what's possible now, right? Or the physical therapists say, I will be able to increase my capacity 10%. And I imagine he asked himself, but what if I could? What if I could increase my capacity to 20%? And maybe he just said 11 or 12%. And then when he got there, 15%. And then when he got there, 18%. And then, a little bit more. I wonder, right? Or curiosity about, well, how will I go to my doctor's appointments? I want to take myself. I don't want to be dependent on anyone else for every appointment. How can I make that happen? Right? Curious about, can I still be involved as a deacon in my church? Like, how will I fulfill the duties that I have said yes to? Because just because, one of my legs has been amputated, it hasn't affected my brain. It hasn't affected my heart of service. It hasn't affected my commitment as a leader. Curious, how do I make it work? That, I think, is when we really can lean into this idea that you and God, me and God, God and I, God and me, right? You and God are always a majority. That's what you need. So I hope this helps you think about how you actually have so much power. You have so much power to be an active part of your own healing. Each one of us, we have so much power. And it simply requires us to move away from disappointment, move away from believing that discord must be happening, move away and turn away from the expectation of disaster or the acceptance that disaster is what has to be. And instead, we move to shift, to transfer our attention to clarity and choice and curiosity. And when we do this, we understand that we are actually actively participating in our desire to be mentally, emotionally, and physically healed. So I hope this gives you something to think about. I've been thinking about this quite a bit lately, not only because of the physical healing related to my finger and hand surgery, but also in terms of mental and emotional healing. It's all the same, right? If I would just simply focus on the truth that I want to see, that I know is possible, the truth that is seeking to express itself in my life, as my life, and through my life, then the healing is a byproduct of revealing that truth. That's all that's happening. So if you're ready to be healed, I hope that these ideas help you begin to think about that. My name is Tracy Brown, and I hope that you will join me every Tuesday at 12 noon Mountain Time for Poetry, Prayer, and Practice. We're going to be going into a series of conversations with other folks over the next few weeks. And so I hope that you will mark your calendar and join me. I also hope that you will watch other programming on the New Thought Media Network. Every day there are early morning Mountain Time spiritual practices, prayer and meditation and visioning. And then throughout the day, 7 days a week, there are messages, there are shows that relate to all kinds of spiritual practices. We can never, ever have too much. So whenever you have a free moment, 15, 20 minutes, pop over to New Thought Media Network and see what's up. I'll see you next Tuesday at noon Central Time. Bye for now.
Thanks for watching. Join us again next week, or watch on demand at www.ntmedia.org or youtube.com/newthoughtmedianetwork. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring. Learn more at www.ntmedia.org.
On behalf of everyone at New Thought Media Network, thank you for being a member of our virtual family. Your financial contributions help share the New Thought message with people from around the world. Please visit and contribute at www.ntmedia.org/donate. New Thought Media Network, come be you. And please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, peace and blessings.